Okay guys, this is academic math for Mrs. Long's class, homework helper. So your first worksheet is finding the square. So you can see you're given on your first one 4 to the second power. Okay, that 4 there is called the base number. Okay, it's the larger number. The 2 is your exponent. Okay, so that's saying 4 times 4, which is 16. The next one is 6 times 6. The next one is 9 times 9. So all of these, you will be multiplying the base number to itself. Okay? So we look over here, it says the base number is larger, the exponent is smaller. The exponent 2 just means multiply your base number times base number. So for example, 5 to the second equals 5 times 5, which equals 25. Okay, on your next worksheet, you have to square a fraction, okay? So if we look at the first one, we have 2 over 3 to the second power, which looks hard, but it's not. Only thing you're going to do, it's the same thing, except for you multiply top and bottom, straight across. So it means 2 to the 5th squared means 2 times 2 on top, which equals 4. On the bottom, 5 times 5 equals 25. So top and bottom, okay? So let's look at another one. Let's look at the second one going across. Okay, so how would we do this? So I would multiply the top, 5 times 5, and put 25. Then I would put a line underneath it, and I would do 7 times 7 is 49. So I should have 25 over 49. Okay? On the next worksheet, you have absolute value. Okay? So absolute value is the distance from 0. So how far away is 3 from 0 on our number line? It's 3 away from 0. How far away is negative 3 from 0? 3. Okay? So it didn't matter that it was negative. It turned positive. Okay? So those lines, those green lines that are parallel, okay, or vertical, stand for absolute value, which means how far away is the number from 0. So another example. The absolute value of negative 4, how far away is negative 4 from 0? It's 4, okay? So this worksheet, you're just going to be pulling that number out, okay, and putting it in the box. Your next worksheet is simplifying expressions with exponents, okay? So this one is a little bit more challenging, but I know you can do it. Okay, I'm going to walk you through it. Okay, so let's do an example. 3x5 times 5x squared. The parentheses mean multiply. Step 1, multiply 3 times 5 equals 15. Step 2, multiply x5 times x2. When we multiply exponents, when they look like this, okay, you're going to add them up. So you can see that I did not do 5 times 2, I did 5 plus 2, okay? So your answer is 15x7, okay? So we're going to multiply the bases, the big numbers. Then we're going to look at the x's. If it's a multiplication problem, you add those x's up, okay? And remember, I should say you're adding those exponents up, okay? Okay, here's another example. 4m squared over 2m4. Okay, so we're just going to look at 4 over 2. That's the only thing it's saying is 4 divided by 2. So 2 goes into 4 2 times. You might wonder, well, does the 2 go on the top or does it go on the bottom? It goes on the top because the 4 is bigger, okay? So the 2 stays on top. Now let's look at the second part. M over 2, or M2 over M4. So we do the opposite of what we did with multiplication because we're doing division. Now we're subtracting, okay, step 2. M2 divided by M4 equals M2. But there's 4 of them on the bottom, so the M2 goes on the bottom. So you remember that the bigger number is where things stay, okay? So you should have a 2 on top and an M2 on the bottom, okay? And we can, maybe in another video, we can review this a little bit more, okay? Okay, so now we're solving equations, okay, with one variable, okay? So we have x plus 3 equals 8. How do we find x? So here's an example. X minus 5 equals 10, okay? So I want to find x. Step 1 is I need to get rid of that 5. So it's a minus 5. So I'm going to add 5 to both sides. When I do that, the 5s go away on that one side because 5 take away 5 is 0. Okay, I bring down my x, I bring down my equal sign, and I add 10 plus 5, which equals 15. Okay, and I can test that out because if I plug that 15 in, I know that 15 minus 5 equals 10. Okay. On the next one I have 6t equals negative 42. How do I get that 6 away from t? Well, it's 6 times t. So I have to do the opposite of multiplication, division. So step 1 is divide by 6. So I divide both sides by 6. Whatever I do to one side of the equation, I do the other side of the equation. Okay, so down here you could see I've crossed the 6's out on that side. Now I have t equals negative 42 over 6. T equals negative 7, okay? Because negative 42 divided by 6 equals negative 7, okay? So why is it negative? Because the signs are not the same. Negative 42 and positive 6. When the signs are different, you will end up with a negative, okay? When they are the same, you will have a positive. Okay, now we're identifying the slope and intercept, okay? So it says write the slope and y-intercept of each equation. So basically, I'm just identifying them. I'm saying, what is the slope? What is the y-intercept? Okay, so let's do an example. So here's the formula, y equals mx plus b. You can see the slope is green. It will always, if it's next to that x, it's going to be in this worksheet. It will always be there, okay? With the intercept, or the y-intercept, it's pink, okay? And it'll always be the b. So for example, y equals negative 3x minus 9. The slope is negative 3. The y-intercept is negative 9. So if we go back to our worksheet, number 1, we can see that negative 5 is our slope. 6 is our y-intercept. Let's look at number 8. So this one, what do? There's no number there. If there's no number there, it's always 1. But in this case, there's a negative. So I know my slope is negative 1. my y-intercept is 6, okay? So if you just see an x there, you know that there's a 1 there, okay? Okay, so let's look at slope-intercept form. This is a worksheet from Mrs. Long's packet. So it explains graphing a little bit more. She has the formula in the middle of the worksheet. Let's look in this corner here. So what is the slope? The slope is the range or the rate of change. So you're rising and running, which means you're going up and over, up and over, okay? Sometimes you're going down and over, down and over. It depends if it's positive or negative. The y-intercept is your starting point. So whenever you're graphing, you start with your y-intercept. It tells you where to start, okay? And we'll review x and y, okay? So you know y is going up and down and x is going across. But we'll look at that in a minute. Okay, so here's an example. So if you look at this graph, you can see the y at the top. The y is going up and down. The x over to your right is going across. So my starting point on this graph is 2 squares up from 0, okay? So I'm up 2. I start at 2, okay? And then in this equation, it says the slope is -3. So I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3, and over 1. Okay? So we'll review some. We'll start out with some that are just positive, and then we'll worry about negatives later, okay? Okay, so this one, let's see. So this one is just asking you to identify the, let's see, let me double check. Find the equation aligned with the given slope and y-intercept, okay? So on this worksheet, you were just identifying, let me make sure this isn't the same worksheet. Hold on one second. Y equals 5x. Okay, so forget this first worksheet. We already went over this. Okay, so let's look at this one. Find the equation of the line with the given slope and the y-intercept. Okay, so they give you the slope. So let's look at number 3. Okay, so it says slope equals 1/5 and y-intercept equals -5. If you remember, here's the formula. Y equals mx plus b. Okay, all you're doing is plugging in the numbers. So remember, here's an example, right? Looks like the one we just chose. Slope equals 1/5. We know the slope goes right there in front of that x. The y-intercept is -5. It goes right there where the pink 5 is. Is it always going to go there? Yep. So you're just plugging those in, okay? Another example. Slope is 3. Y-intercept is 2. So plug it in, okay? You're always going to be using y equals mx plus b. The slope is green. The y-intercept is pink. You write that formula at the top of your page, color code it, and remember you're just plugging in numbers, okay? Okay, so now we're getting into graphing, okay? So let's look at this. Let's do something, start out with that's not so difficult. Okay, let's start with let's do number 7 first, okay? So remember, y-intercept is your starting point, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to put a dot on that 3 there, okay? See the y line? You're putting a dot on 3, okay? Now your slope is 5, which really is 5 up, 1 over, okay? So there's kind of an imaginary 1 underneath there. So it's telling you from 3, you should have a dot on your 3 going up, okay? On the y, there should be a dot on your 3. You're going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now you're at 8, and then you're going to move over 1, okay? And put a dot. Okay, so you're connecting, you have a dot on the 3, and you have a dot 1 over from 8, okay? So that coordinate there is 1, comma 8, okay? And we could talk about that later more. But so, let's see over here. I didn't have any graphing paper, so have to get some. But anyway, here's a rough example, okay? So let's look at y equals 1/2 x minus 2. So in this case, I put a dot on -2. You could see it's in pink. Then it said my slope was 1 over 2. So I went up 1 and I went over 2. So I rise up 1 and I run over 2. I rise up 1 and I run over 2. And then I just connect my dots. Okay? Here's another example. Y equals -3 over 2 x plus 4. Okay? So you can see that pink dot represents the y-intercept 4. Okay? So I have a pink dot on 4. Now I have my slope, -3 over 2. So it says rise, but really I'm going down because it's a negative this time. Okay? So basically the rise has to do with the y, the line that's going up and down. Okay? So I'm going down 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going over 1, 2. See where I put the dot? Then I'm going down again, 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to run 1, 2. Then I connect my dots. Okay? Okay, so graphing the line from points in table. Okay, so this is coordinates. Whoops. Okay, so I'm going to skip this one and make a separate video on this because I would like to plot them out with you. If you want to start on it and you know how to do coordinates, that's great. So the first thing you can do is, let's look at number 1, okay? So you have x, and then you have +2. The +2 is your starting point. So you're going to go up 2 and put a dot on that y line, okay? So you have your x there, okay? And you're going to put a dot on the 2. Okay, there's no 2 there, but you can count 2 squares, okay? And dots don't go in between squares, they go on the line. So you're counting lines, not spaces, okay? And then you've got an x, which means 1 over 1, okay? Because that's the imaginary number there. 1 over 1, okay? So I have a dot on 2. I'm going to go up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1. Okay? But I see these points there, and that's what I want to go over with you later. Okay? So we're going to skip this one unless you know how to do it. If you know how to do it, great. Go for it. If not, I'd like to look at that a little bit closer, okay? And go over that with you. Okay, so this is a puzzle, and you guys can work on this yourself. I think you'll be able to handle this. Sometimes you'll have to skip a problem to figure out the code, right? But as you solve them, you'll start to see a pattern and you'll be able to do it, okay? If you get stuck, let me know, okay? Okay, so this is quiz and code. If you see here, I've cut off part of this worksheet here, but it's okay. I can still do it. We can still do it. You're just solving for variables. If you remember, are solving for letters, right? So the numbers are a little bit bigger, and some have decimals, but they're the same thing, okay? If you remember from before, we're getting x by itself, right? So in this example, I'm getting rid of that -5 by adding 5, okay, crossing those 5's off, and bringing the x down equals 15. Okay, so some of these, they have bigger numbers, but it's the same thing. You can use your calculator to do that. Okay, I'm going to minimize this and see what's hiding under, if there's something hiding underneath there. There's not. Okay. All right. Okay, so this one is more of the same thing, except for it's getting more complicated, okay? So the first one is -5y equals 60. Okay, so if we go back, we have an example. Whoops. We have an example of that, I believe, over here. Okay, so 6t equals -42 is an example of that type of problem. And when I get t by itself, it's 6 times t, okay? So I divide on both sides 6 to get rid of it. Cross out your 6's, okay? 6 goes into -42, -7 times, okay? So let's look at this problem here. So on this one, what would you would divide, right? But what would you divide by? -5y equals 60. So you would divide both sides by -5. Cross out your -5's. Now you have y equals 60 over -5. 60 divided by -5 equals 12, or -12 I should say, because the signs are different, right? Okay, so I can see we have some fractions here, okay? Let's see, more fractions. So this is something we'll need to, let's see if I did it over here. Okay, let me make this smaller. Yeah, okay, we do have some examples here, okay? And here is the one we just did, okay? So you can see that -5y equals 60. Divide -5, divide -5. Cross out your 5's, y equals -12, okay? Now what about this problem, okay? -1/12d equals -3. I want to get rid of that 12, okay? Once I get rid of that 12, this is no longer a difficult problem, but the 12 is making it seem difficult, okay? To get rid of it, I see that the 12 is on the bottom, okay? When it's on the bottom, that means I'm going to to get rid of it, I'm going to put a 12 on the top, okay? And that's a -12, so I'm going to put a -12 over there, okay? And if I multiply one side of the problem by -12, I'm going to multiply the other side by -12, okay? So now that I did that, I get to cross those 12's off, those -12's off. Now I have just a 1, which is nothing. So I just have d equals negative 3 times negative 12. So D equals 36. Okay? So remember, with fractions, if it's on the bottom, you're going to multiply, okay, to get rid of it. So you put it on the top. If, for instance, the 12 was on the top, then you would have to divide both sides and put it on the bottom to get rid of it. Okay. Okay, so this is some more review. It's the same thing. Okay, let's look at some examples. Whoops. Okay, so we have 8x equals negative 72. I want to get rid of that 8. It's 8 times x, so I divide. Divide both sides by 8. Okay? Once I do that, Once I do that, I can cross out these 8's. Okay? Now I have x equals negative 72 over 8. X equals negative 9. Because negative 72 divided by 8, signs are different, so I get negative 9. Remember, guys, use your calculators to double check. Okay? Here's another example on the other side of the sheet, okay? At the top, right. Okay, negative x over 4 equals 25. Okay, remember I had said if it's at the bottom, you're going to go top, right? So I'm going to multiply, okay? I want to get rid of that negative 4. So I multiply both sides by negative 4. Okay, so after I multiply, I cross out. So I cross out the negative 4's. Now I've gotten rid of that negative. Okay, so it's x equals 25 times negative 4. So x equals 100. Okay, so this is your packet from Mrs. Long. I will go over coordinates, which is how do you plot the points. I know you guys have been working on that with her, so a lot of you are probably already going to know how to do it, but I will review that, and I will also go over some of the more challenging problems again in a separate video. If you have any questions, please contact me. Also, make sure you're going on to Mrs. Long's Google Classroom. If she's asking you to do Khan Academy or any other online things, then please do that, okay? All right, I'll see you guys later, and you know how to get a hold of me, okay? Bye.